All right, so get ready because today we're diving into the world of Goosebumps. But not the stories themselves this time. We're going to uncover all the legal drama that almost took down this huge, massive franchise. Like, think courtroom battles mixed with all that childhood nostalgia. It's really something else.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much this story pulls back the curtain on how the whole publishing industry works. It gets really messy, even for a brand as big as Goosebumps.
Oh, for sure. And we're talking some serious clashing egos here, right? Like tons of cash flying around. It's basically a Hollywood thriller, but in a courtroom. But before we get into all that, let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to the 90s, back when scholastic book fairs were like the biggest thing ever. You remember those, right?
Oh yeah,
It was like boxes overflowing with books everywhere you looked, and everyone was trying to find the newest Goosebumps.
those book fairs were genius. It wasn't just about selling books; it was the whole experience.
Yeah.
It was all about discovery, and Scholastic really tapped into that.
Absolutely. And of course, you've got R.L. Stein, the man behind it all. He was already pretty well known from his Fear Street books, but Goosebumps, man, Goosebumps launched him into a whole other level of fame.
Oh yeah, he was a rock star.
We're talking like 4 million books shipping every month at the peak.
Wow,
$1 billion in sales for Scholastic, a lot because of Goosebumps, and even a $40 million marketing deal with Pepsi.
that's huge. It was the perfect recipe for success. You had Stein's fan base, then you add in those simple but effective spooky stories for kids, and then top it all off with Scholastic's marketing.
Yeah, no one could touch them, but that success also led to problems. It's like the saying, too much of a good thing, right?
Right.
So the first contract between Stein's company, Parachute Press, and Scholastic seemed pretty normal, but there was this one little detail, a tiny clause that would cause huge issues later. Basically, it said that R.L. Stein would be the only writer for Goosebumps.
And that clause, it seemed so small at the time.
Hmm.
But when the franchise just blew up, it became this huge point of contention.
Yeah, suddenly everyone's asking who really controls the creative side, who's actually writing these things.
Exactly.
And fast forward a few years, things start to get tense. Parachute Press, they start wanting more control, especially over the licensing and, of course, more money. They wanted a bigger piece of the pie. I mean, Goosebumps was making money for everyone, right?
Yeah, and you can see their point. It was a huge moneymaker, and they felt like their role wasn't being recognized.
Yeah, both creatively and financially. But on the flip side, Scholastic wasn't too happy about these demands either.
Yeah, they're the publisher. They poured resources into this, and suddenly the creators want to change everything.
It created a huge power struggle, millions of dollars at stake.
Yeah, the whole future of Goosebumps was hanging in the balance.
So tensions escalate. Accusations start flying around, and things get, well, pretty ugly. Then Scholastic announces that Goosebumps sales are dropping and their stock takes a hit, and then boom, the bombshell. Scholastic accuses Stein of using ghostwriters, and that was a direct violation of their contract.
Now, ghostwriting, that's a tricky thing in publishing. It raises questions about who the author really is. Are the readers really getting what they paid for?
Yeah, it's a big ethical question, and Scholastic used that to their advantage. They claimed that Stein had been using ghostwriters for years,
Wow, for years.
maybe even as early as book 17. Why I'm afraid of bees. And they said that's why sales were dropping, that these ghost-written books just weren't as good.
Interesting.
But, of course, Parachute Press fought back. They said, okay, yeah, maybe some writers helped out here and there, but they insisted that Stein was the main creative mind behind it all.
So it's kind of a mystery then.
It is. Was Stein really the only one writing all those books, or was there, like, a secret team of writers helping him out?
That's the million-dollar question. And the truth is probably somewhere in between. But there's another part of this that's just wild.
Okay, what's that?
So picture this. We've got this huge legal battle happening. Accusations, money, the whole thing. But the Goosebumps machine, it just keeps going.
What do you mean?
They're releasing new books.
No way.
The TV show is still scaring kids.
Wow.
They even opened a Goosebumps attraction at Disney World.
You're kidding.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like this weird paradox. You've got this brand that's massively successful on the outside, but behind the scenes, it's falling apart.
It's like they're living a double life. Thriving in public, but crumbling in private.
Exactly.
And then, just when you think it can't get any weirder, a new player enters the game. Harry Potter.
Ah, yeah. The arrival of Harry Potter in the late 90s, that changed everything for children's literature.
And Scholastic, those guys are smart. They saw the potential in Harry Potter and they went all in.
It's easy to see why, right? Harry Potter, it was global. It was more than just books. It was a phenomenon.
Yeah, and suddenly Goosebumps, which was the king of the playground, they had
Yeah.
some serious competition.
It's how trends work, right? Even the most popular things fade as new things come up.
So, while the lawsuits definitely played a role in Goosebumps' decline, we have to remember that Harry Potter changed everything. It makes you wonder, would Goosebumps have stayed on top even without the lawsuits? Or was it just destined to fade away regardless of the legal stuff?
Yeah, it's tough to say for sure, but Harry Potter definitely changed the game, and Goosebumps was playing catch up.
Absolutely. It shows that the publishing world, it's always evolving. What's popular today might be old news tomorrow.
So, after years of this legal battle back and forth, Scholastic and Parachute Press finally settle in 2003.
In Scholastic, they see that the Goosebumps brand still has power. So they buy out Parachute Press completely. They get full control of the franchise.
But it was a bittersweet victory. By that point, the Goosebumps craze had cooled down a lot.
It shows how fickle success can be. Even a huge franchise can lose its momentum, especially when the market is changing so fast. But here's the thing, Goosebumps, it never really went away.
What do you mean?
It's like that horror movie villain. It just keeps coming back.
Yeah, that's true.
It's had revivals and adaptations all these years. It's shown some serious staying power.
And that's a testament to those spooky stories, right? How they still resonate with people even after all these years.
Totally. It's R.L. Stein's creativity, that mix of nostalgia and a good scare. Goosebumps just nails it.
And it shows the power of a strong brand. Even though that initial craze died down, the name Goosebumps still means something.
Oh yeah, it's instantly recognizable. It brings back memories, feelings.
So what does all this mean? Well, first, it shows that success is rarely easy. Even a beloved franchise like Goosebumps had to overcome a lot of obstacles. And it also shows how important strong partnerships are, especially in creative fields. When those relationships break down, even huge brands can suffer.
Yeah, and we also see that publishing is a business. Just like anything else, it's driven by the market. Something of Harry Potter that can change the entire game.
But maybe the biggest takeaway here is that Goosebumps is resilient. It's gone through lawsuits, changing trends, ups and downs in the market, but it's still here.
Those stories captured a whole generation's imagination. And they're still finding new fans today. The legacy of Goosebumps lives on.
Yeah, it really makes you think about like what makes something last in pop culture, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely more than just being trendy for a bit. There's got to be something else there.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the lawsuits, Harry Potter coming in, but I'm curious about the revivals. Like, what kept Goosebumps from just disappearing?
That's a good question. I think part of it is just how appealing the stories are, you
Yeah.
know? They play on those childhood fears we all have, but in a safe way.
Right,
Like
right.
it's like a roller coaster. You know you're safe, but you still get that thrill.
And there's that nostalgia factor too, right?
Mhm.
For those of us who grew up with it, it takes you right back.
Oh, absolutely. Nostalgia is powerful, and it works so well in marketing. You bring back good memories, and people connect with that.
Yeah, like comfort food, but spooky.
Yeah.
But nostalgia alone can't keep something going for decades.
Right.
There has to be something else that keeps bringing in new readers. And that's where the adaptations and revivals come in. They bring in a whole new audience who might not know the original books or the show.
It's like giving the franchise new life, keeping it fresh.
Exactly.
Like the Jack Black movie. That was smart. Take the classic elements and add a modern twist. It worked for both old fans and new ones.
Yeah, and it shows there's still a huge audience for Goosebumps.
And they've done new book series too, right? I've seen them around and they seem to be doing well.
Yeah, Scholastic's been good at keeping the brand alive. New covers, bonus content for the old books, and new series that expand on the world.
So they're respecting the original but also moving forward.
It's a tricky balance, but it seems to be working.
And I've heard there might be a new TV show in the works.
Oh yeah, there are definitely rumors about a reboot. If they do it right, it could be huge. The streaming world is perfect for something like Goosebumps. You know, episodic, suspenseful, perfect for binge watching.
Can you imagine a whole new generation getting spooked by Slappy the Dummy?
It would be amazing. Goosebumps coming back to the spotlight, showing those stories are timeless.
You know, and it's not just about the scares and creatures. There were deeper themes in those stories too, like friendship, being brave, overcoming challenges.
Oh, for sure. Steen was good at sneaking in life lessons in the middle of all the spooky stuff.
Yeah, they talked about bullying, self-esteem, standing up for yourself.
Things that kids always deal with no matter the time.
It wasn't just about escaping, it was about, like, empowering kids.
Exactly.
It let them face their fears, the real ones and the made-up ones, and maybe learn something about themselves along the way.
It shows how good Stein is as a writer.
Yeah.
He knew his audience, how to entertain them, and wasn't afraid to talk about real stuff.
And that's why I think these stories have lasted. They're more than just spooky. They're about growing up, facing your fears, finding your place.
I think the impact goes way beyond sales or movie numbers.
Yeah.
It's about how those stories affected generations.
Yeah, for a lot of people, Goosebumps was their introduction to reading.
Maybe even what got them into writing themselves.
You know, I have to admit, I wasn't a huge Goosebumps kid. I was more into mysteries and fantasy. But looking back, I can see how much it changed things.
Oh, yeah.
It gave kids a way to explore the darker side, embrace being scared.
And that's important. We need stories that show the whole range of emotions,
Yeah.
even the ones that make us uncomfortable.
Absolutely. It's okay to be scared, to like the shadows, to enjoy a good scare.
That's a good lesson for everyone, kids and adults.
So we've talked about the rise and fall, the lawsuits, how resilient Goosebumps is. But there's one thing we haven't talked about yet.
That's it.
We've focused on the franchise, but what about the man behind it? What happened to R.L. Stine after all this?
Yeah.
Did he just fade away, or did he keep writing?
That's a great question. And it leads to a really interesting part of Steen's career.
Yeah, it's kind of strange, you know. We've talked about all this big stuff, the lawsuits, how Goosebumps changed things, but we almost forgot about R.L. Stine himself.
Right.
So what happened to him after everything calmed down?
Well, he didn't stop writing, that's for sure. It's like those lawsuits didn't slow him down at all.
So he didn't just, like, kick back and relax with all that Goosebumps money.
Nope, not at all. He actually started writing in other genres. Books for adults, new series for kids, even graphic novels.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It would have been easy to just stick with Goosebumps, but he wanted to try new things.
It shows how much he loves writing, always wanting to grow as a writer.
And it worked out for him. He found new fans, got good reviews, became even more of an icon in horror.
Yeah, he really cemented his place.
So the lawsuits might have meant the end of an era for Goosebumps, at least how big it was. But that wasn't the end for R.L. Stine.
Right. He used that experience to do something new.
To reinvent himself, basically.
Exactly. And that's a great lesson for anyone, not just writers. When things go bad, you got to be resilient, adapt, and be open to new challenges.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Goosebumps, I want to ask you, the listener, what do you think about all this? Does it change how you see the books or the franchise? Maybe it makes you think about writing, how publishing works, or just bouncing back from tough times.
Yeah, it's a story about success, about conflict, but also about how powerful stories can be. It reminds us that even with lawsuits and trends changing, a good story sticks with you. A story that captures your imagination, that stays with you, that can have a real impact.
Yeah, and for me, it shows that even though the publishing world can be rough, there's still something magical about books. There's a reason those stories resonated with so many of us as kids, and why they're still finding new fans today.
Absolutely. So next time you see a Goosebumps book or Slappy the Dummy pops up somewhere, remember there's a whole lot going on behind those scary stories.
Yeah, and remember, even in the scariest stories, there's always some hope there, a reminder that we can face our fears, overcome challenges, and that our imagination can help us through anything. That's all for our deep dive this time. Thanks for listening.